It is time to start with our last session for this time. And I will invite to the stage Augustė Burinskaitė and Emilija Čepulė. They are both from Ranos Gudinas Center for Conservation from Lithuania and specialized on conservation of paper. And today they will talk about church stained glass cartoons. And somehow they're hiding somewhere. I know that they're on stage. You're welcome. Stage is yours.
Tere päevast!
Labdien!
Laba diena!
Hello everyone. My name is Augustė.
My name is Emilija.
Emilija is an artist. The artist.
Augustė is a historian. And this is Kazys Morkūnas.
We have officially been conservators for just 1 year. So it might seem a bit unusual to see us here on the stage of the Baltic Conservation Triennial, presenting with so little experience. Don't be surprised if this talk turns out to be a little bit out of the ordinary. Since the creator of the work we restored, Kazys Morkūnas, had a truly unique personality. He was even called a magician of stained glass. We thought we would bring along a few magic tricks of our own.
In 2024, Kazys Morkūnas and his stained glass works were remembered before his upcoming 100th anniversary, and the condition of the stained glass cartoons was poor. But the moment was sure, so the Ranos Gudinas Center got a task from Lithuanian National Museum to conserve them. Since the works were huge, life-size, colleagues looked for helping hands. And that's how we started our careers as conservators. So I guess we can call it our first magic trick.
The second trick is in itself, that we are standing here on this very stage.
And the third trick you will see a little later.
So, as a historian, it is my pleasure to briefly introduce the creator of these artworks. Kazys Morkūnas was born in 1925 in Žiežmariai, Lithuania, and died in 2014. He graduated from the Vilnius Academy of Arts in 1952 and became a professor in 1976. As a human being, Morkūnas loved nature, Lithuanian lakes, as you have already seen at the beginning of this presentation, and a good, strong coffee with lemon juice, 10 spoons of sugar, and one secret ingredient that you will see in the visual recipe behind us. As an artist, he created his first stained glass works as a student and became a key figure in 20th century Lithuanian art, renewing national traditions by pioneering fused glass techniques, layering thin sheets of glass to create new visual effects. Inspired by Western European stained glass and the Czech glass school, he developed a distinctive sculptural style. His works are known for their clarity, monumentality, dynamic forms, and strong contrasts of light and color. Morkūnas is also remembered as principled and charismatic. During the Soviet occupation period, when he was required to include a liberating soldier in a stained glass project for the Lithuanian parliament, he discreetly placed it as an anonymous lying figure beneath the staircase. His students called him maestro or master, valuing his generous guidance and encouragement of individual creativity. He received numerous awards, including the Lithuanian Government Award for Culture and the Arts in 2013, and his works were exhibited at world expositions in 1967 and 1970. Creating stained glass for a church had long been his aspiration. This was realized in Vilkaviškis, where the Cathedral of the Visitation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, which was destroyed during the Second World War and demolished in 1944, was rebuilt between 1990s and 1998. One of his main challenges was balancing the cathedral neo-Romanesque character with contemporary expression. The stained glass cartoons emerged from this effort and were well received by the reconstruction team. The stained glass windows were produced in the Morkūnas studio in Vilnius and transported to Vilkaviškis, where the cartoons served the primary function as full-scale working templates for the layout, measurement, and cutting of the glass elements.
Since I already have a degree in arts, I feel confident to guide you through both. The specific of making the stained glass cartoons and their condition before conservation. Kazys Morkūnas created all original cartoons for the Vilkaviškis Cathedral stained glass windows using gouache and black ink on graph paper. The paper was not just single sheet, it was assembled from several strips joined together into one long roll. At first glance, the drawings look very colorful and detailed and almost too beautiful to be just working cartoons. However, before conservation, it became clear that Morkūnas did not treat them as finished artworks. Instead, he used them as practical working tools, something he could freely change and adjust throughout the entire stained glass process. To better understand the working method and to choose the most suitable conservation approach, in September 2025, we traveled to Vilkaviškis Cathedral. There we met the prelate, Vytautas Gustaitis, who commissioned the stained glass for the cathedral. He shared his vivid memories of visiting Morkūnas studio and seeing the creative process in action. From this, we learned that the artist used cartoons to try out compositions, colors, proportions, and different iconographic details. Because of this, many changes are visible. Parts that did not work were cut out and replaced with new pieces of paper and painted again. These larger added patches are easy to notice. They are usually made from different type of paper with sharply cut edges. And this clearly shows how practical and flexible the process was. There are also measurement marks and cutting lines, and even glass pieces were placed out and cut on top of them at full scale. And interestingly, we found footprints on the back side, suggesting that they usually were often laid on the floor and moved around, folded, and then straightened again. So, of course, this intensive use caused significant damage, which brings us to their condition before conservation. And before conservation, the cartoons were stored rolled up with the painted side inward and protected only by a thin layer of paper. As a result, the paper became deformed, especially along the edges. There were many tears, creases, and folds, and in some areas, even missing pieces. The largest tears were found along the edges, and some of them were quite long. And during the stained glass production, the artist himself attempted to repair damaged areas. He used different adhesive tapes, both transparent and brown, as well as tracing paper and other types of paper, and mostly applied on the reverse side. However, these repairs were no longer stable. The patches became deformed, and their edges lift, curled, or detached. The surfaces were also quite dirty, especially near the edges, with a lot of dust on both sides.
So, maybe we can finally start talking about conservation process.
Unfortunately, not yet. We should not forget to mention that the conservation of these large-scale cartoons required two very important things: the precise teamwork and non-standard photographic documentation.
Emilia, but don't we have a table? The camera on the phone seems to be working too.
Augustė, do you need a reminder of how big our cartoons are?
Oh, right. Maybe we should show our lovely audience how big our sketches actually are.
With my pleasure.
And now, it's time for a third trick. Watch carefully as we pull a copy of the sketch out of the hat. No rabbits, just pure conservation magic.
So, for work this big, a normal table just wasn't enough. We didn't put it on the floor either. It would have been uncomfortable and a bit risky for the artwork. Also, there was a lot to do while photographing it. The photographer, Vilma, with her whole tripod, climbed to a high table and, risking her own safety, photographed the work piece by piece from above and then joined it all together into one complete image.
And to lift, unroll, carry, or turn such a large work from the second floor to first and back, you need at least 2 people. Just like we need 2 people for this presentation.
And to hold this.
All right, enough about construction. Let's move on to something more subtle. For example, chemistry. What was the pH of the sketches, Emilia?
Actually, it was not bad, but don't think the paper itself was poor quality. It was actually very good graph paper, which a pH between 5.5 and almost 6. And since the pH was this good, we didn't need to wash the paper, and thanks God.
We have to admit, the sketches were really filthy. We even wondered whether we would find Cladosporium or Aspergillus fungal spores on Morkūna's sketches. And well, we did. But after disinfecting them with alcohol wipes, any trace of them was gone.
Augusta, so what was the hardest part for you in this conservation process?
Sticky tapes. This was, at the same time, the most enjoyable part of the procedure, and in some spots, the trickiest. Some tapes left behind traces of synthetic glue, which had to be carefully removed with scalpels, disturbing the paper surface as little as possible. But the prize for horror goes to the chalky paper, probably glued in a hurry by Morkūnas himself, with synthetic adhesives to reinforce especially deep tears.
Since we're talking about tears, could you show the audience how big they were so they can really understand us?
Okay. There were some like this, some like that,
Yes.
and some like this, and some like that.
And those had to be reconstructed. Due to time limits, we won't demonstrate the full conservation method, but it's important to mention that all tiers were glued with 10% wheat starch paste and Japanese paper. However, the gluing process was more complicated than usual because of the size, but fortunately we found a mobile illuminated table at a reasonable price, which helped us align and repair the tiers more easily.
In the final stage, we retouched damaged areas on the front side using pointillist watercolor techniques. So, basically this is it.
Not just basically it, Augusta. It is important to mention that we also had to decide how to preserve works of size this big for the future. Since the sketches had been stored rolled with the painted side inward for a long time, we decided to keep them this way for storage on acrylic tubes. Of course, we increased the roll diameter to protect the paint, and also cartoons were interleaved with silk tissue for extra protection.
So, maybe now we can finally call it done. The end.
For now, just for now, because there are still about 70 more Morkūnas cartoons left to work on.
Thank you. Aita, paldies, ačiū.
Thank you very much for this exciting presentation. Any questions? Comments?
Galim susirinkti. We
We will
roll it.
Yeah, we'll clean everything.